Every schoolbook tells you the same story. Alexander the Great, undefeated, unstoppable, a god in human form who swept from Greece to India without a single loss. But that story has a chapter most historians quietly skip over. 329 BC, Central Asia. A man with no kingdom, no professional army, and no chance of winning brought the greatest military machine the ancient world had ever seen to its knees. Not once, twice. His name was Spitamenes, and Alexander the Great was so desperate to kill him that he spent 2 full years, 2 years, chasing a ghost across the desert. This is that story. By 330 BC, Alexander had already done the impossible. He had crossed the Hellespont, shattered the Persian Empire at Gaugamela, burned Persepolis to the ground, and declared himself king of Asia. Darius III, the most powerful ruler on earth, was dead, murdered by his own men. The war was over. Everyone knew it. At this point, Alexander had de facto already defeated the Persian Empire. Professional moron. His armies stood at the edge of the known world. India was next. All he needed to do was march through Bactria and Sogdiana, 2 remote Central Asian provinces that nobody considered a serious threat. He was wrong. Spitamenes was a prominent Sogdian noble born into the aristocracy of what is now Uzbekistan. He was not a king, not a Persian general, just a regional leader who understood one thing the Macedonians did not. You don't fight Alexander's army head-to-head. You make it bleed slowly. At first, Spitamenes even appeared to be on Alexander's side. In summer, 329 BC, he betrayed the Persian satrap Bessus, who had declared himself king, by handing him over to Alexander's general Ptolemy. Alexander must have thought, good, another loyal subject. He was very, very wrong. Because while Alexander was busy building a new city on the frontier, Alexandria Eshkei, the furthest Alexandria, news came that Spitamenes had roused Sogdiana against him and was besieging the Macedonian garrison in Markanda. Fling. The revolt had begun. Alexander was too busy to deal with this personally. He sent a subordinate commander named Pharnaces with a force of 2,000 infantry and 300 cavalry, experienced soldiers, more than enough to crush a regional uprising. They marched confidently into Sogdiana. They never came back. Spitamenes and his Scythian allies waited for the Macedonian soldiers to arrive. They eventually met at the Polytimetus River, where the Macedonians were lured into one of their biggest military disasters. Spitamenes and his allies used nomadic fighting tactics, circling Alexander's troops on horses while shooting them down with arrows. The Macedonian phalanx, the greatest infantry formation in history, had no answer. They were trained to advance, to push, to break enemy lines, against an enemy that never stood still, never came close, and simply kept moving and shooting. They panicked. The Macedonians fled onto a nearby river island where they were trapped and shot down from the riverbank one by one. The loss was no less than 2,000 infantry and 300 cavalry. Fleeing an entire Macedonian force, annihilated by a man with no formal army and no empire. When Alexander heard the news, ancient sources say he was furious and ordered that no one was to speak of what happened. Alexander himself now marched for Sogdiana, but Spitamenes was already gone, melting back into the steppe with his nomadic allies. He found allies among the tribe of the Dahai and attacked Bactra in the winter of 329 to 328 BC, creating great havoc. This was the genius of Spitamenes. He never tried to hold territory. He had no capital to defend, no supply lines to protect. Every time Alexander moved toward him, he disappeared. Every time Alexander turned away, he struck. Alexander could not kill Spitamenes. Macedonian convoys were raided multiple times, keeping the resistance alive through winter. For 2 years, one of history's greatest conquerors chased a shadow across the desert and could not catch it. Spitamenes was not defeated by Alexander. He was defeated by geography and betrayal. In spring 328 BC, Alexander sent his general Craterus to fortify the oasis of Margiana, cutting off Spitamenes from his resources and supply routes. Slowly, the net tightened. In December 328 BC, at the Battle of Gabai, Spitamenes' army suffered over 800 fatalities in a rout. His alliance splintered as Sogdian and Bactrian contingents deserted. Cornered, his allies turned on him. Spitamenes was killed by nomadic tribal leaders who sent his head to Alexander, suing for peace. Some ancient sources say it was his own wife who killed him, fearing Alexander's retribution. He was 42 years old. Here is what the history books rarely tell you. After Spitamenes died, Alexander did not celebrate. He did something far more telling. He married into the family. Spitamenes had a daughter, Apama, who was married to one of Alexander's most important generals, Seleucus I Nicator, the man who would go on to found the Seleucid Empire, one of the most powerful dynasties in the ancient world. You don't marry the family of a man you defeated easily. You marry them to make peace, to buy loyalty, to acknowledge that these people humbled you. Spitamenes' tactical emphasis on mobility, feigned retreats, and opportunistic alliances prefigured enduring guerrilla strategies seen in later conflicts. From Parthian resistance to modern insurgencies, every guerrilla war in history has a little of Spitamenes in it. Alexander the Great conquered the known world, but for 2 years, one man with no throne, no empire, and no conventional army made him bleed for every inch of Central Asian soil. History remembers Alexander. It forgot Spitamenes. Now you won't. If you want to go deeper into the Persian and Central Asian empires that shaped this world, I've written an entire book on this period. Link is in the description below. And if you enjoyed this story, subscribe, because next week we tell the story of another forgotten warrior who changed the course of history. The empires rise. The stories continue.